Uh, well, good morning all. Thank you for coming. I know it's very early. I usually don't even get up as early as today, but thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. You might have an exhausting week, so it is really you really deserve a clap for coming to this festival very early in the morning. Or I come from Mexico, so in Mexico it's 7 a.m. So it's very early. Most people are hungover from the party last night. I didn't go to the party because I was giving this talk. First of all, can you do me a favor? Just like please, everybody come to the front rows. I mean, we have enough room. I'm not even using the microphone. I don't know if that's okay. No micrófono, perfecto. For the streaming. Okay. I don't like using microphone because I really tend to move my hands a lot, so it's hard to do it when you have a microphone in your hand. Okay, thank you. Well, welcome to this talk. This talk is called Introducing New Generations to Open Source. My name is there. Oh, it doesn't look at all. My name is Fernando Perales. I come from Mexico, and I know it is kind of weird to, even though I come from Mexico, I'm talking in English. It was a suggestion from my Brazilian staff advisor that he really encouraged me to give this talk in English. But if you have questions in Spanish, también hablo español, obviamente, de manera nativa, pueden acercarse al terminar la plática. Well, about me. My name is Fernando Perales. It's pretty long. I actually have a first name at the beginning and a last name at the end. So for sure, let's keep it fair. I consider myself a FLOSS advocate. I really like giving talks, workshops about free, libre, and open source software. In Mexico, I have given lots of, and it's my first talk outside Mexico, which is, I'm really happy to be here. I'm passionate about web development. At the beginning, Español, Portuguese. No problem. No problem. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll use this. Passionate about web development. This is what I do for a living, and I've been doing pretty much Ruby on Rails for the last 4 years. Also, public speaker information. This year has been great for me because I have given about 5 talks, and I think I'm giving 2 more at the end of the year, and I'm very glad. Also, lecture-based student. I really dropped the music career, but I really like to say this as a way of remember myself that I really need to learn electric bass because I really like. Also, some of my other things I like, heavy metal, beer, of course, Twitter. I really spend a lot of time on that social network. That's why my username is at the bottom and the hashtag, so I really encourage you to use both. Ruby the language, and Gregory Salust. I really like to mention this because there's a quote. Before there was James Bond, there was Gregory Salust. Who is this guy? There are 12, 13 books about Gregory Salust. He was a spy in the World War II, I think. These books were written between 1938 and 1958. So I think they are pretty cool books, kind of underrated. That's why I like to mention these books. If you like kind of James Bond and spies, you might find these books interesting. And I come from Guadalajara, Mexico. I'm not really sure if I'm the speaker who have traveled the most to get here, but I'm sure I'm among the ones. This is Mexico. Who has been to Mexico before? One. Okay, cool. This is Mexico, and there are 2 points. The blue one, which is Guadalajara, and the one in black, Mexico City. This is the largest city in Mexico. And then we have states. So that state with a cross shape, it's called Jalisco. This is where I come from. Jalisco is divided into municipalities, the same as Portugal and Brazil, I mean. And that little red one is Guadalajara. Even though it is small, it's the second largest city in Mexico. You can find some pictures on your favorite searcher. It's a real nice city. On an ideal world, I should have traveled only 15 hours and 55 minutes, so almost 16 hours. But there's no direct flight from Guadalajara to Portugal, so I have to do this. First, 1 hour from Guadalajara to Mexico City, and then wait. I think it was 4 hours at the airport. Then from Mexico City to Lima, Peru. I think it was 5 or 6 hours. So I was very exhausted at that time. And then wait a couple of hours more. This was Tuesday night. So I was at Peru at, should have been 12 a.m. Wednesday. And then wait more. And then from Lima to Porto Alegre. So I arrived here on Wednesday at 5 a.m. And I couldn't make it to the early conference on Wednesday, which were started at 9 a.m. It was very hard for me. So, well, I'm here to Forum International of Free Software. And well, this is a fun fact that I found while doing this presentation. At Guadalajara, Mexico, and Porto Alegre in Brazil are sister cities. I'm not really sure what it means, but I mean, I found this on Wikipedia, so it was a fun fact. This is the second in the list, Guadalajara, Mexico. So I think we are somehow brothers and sisters. So high five, everybody. Well, what I do for a living, I'm a software engineer at a company called Magma Labs. We're an e-commerce consultancy based in Mexico. We have been on the business for 7 years. Quite hidden, by the way. I can give you more info once the talk is done. We pretty much work for startups on the United States. Our biggest client at today is GoPro. I think you have heard of them, the cameras for action. And I also represent and I run the Ruby Guadalajara community. GDL is short for Guadalajara because we like big names, but we don't like to pronounce them. And I'm really impressed that I haven't found any people who program Ruby in Brazil. I mean, this is not a bad thing, but I was expecting to interact with Ruby communities. Maybe I haven't found them. So our meetups are every third Thursday monthly. So the next one is the next week. And that's the webpage in case you want to take a look. We usually record the talks, so if you want to practice your both Ruby and Spanish language skills, you can go there. Also, I represent RailsBridge Mexican chapter. We started this last year, I think. What is RailsBridge? Has anyone heard of RailsBridge? Pro tip, it Rails related, Ruby and Rails related. RailsBridge is a non-profit association founded in San Francisco in, I think, was 2009. And the purpose of this organization is to give free workshops about mainly Ruby and Rails, but also for other web development technologies, such JavaScript, HTML, CSS, etc. And we are running the Mexican chapter along Ana Castro, who was also member of the board of RailsBridge, and Nora, another friend from Colima called Nora. I'm going to talk about them a little bit more in this talk. And that's the page where what we have done mainly is translate all the material, which is free to redistribute, and translate into Spanish and make the Spanish workshops available for anyone. Well, that's me. And before we get started, I want to make an announcement, a disclaimer. This is not a talk about programming, even though I have talked a lot about Ruby and Ruby on Rails, but this is not about programming. I'm not talking about code. I'm not talking about testing. I'm not talking about servers. But this talk is about people who program. By the way, please raise your hand or if you are a programmer, software engineer, I don't know. If you work directly with code, please raise your hand. Like write code. Okay. If you are designer, UI, UX, experience creator, if you were more on the creative part on the design part, please raise your hand. No one. Okay. Even though, as I mentioned, this is a talk about people who program. But if you are not a programmer, this talk is also for you. I have a part for you. So, okay, let's start. The name of the talk, Introducing New Generations to Open Source, which is kind of wrong. Actually, this is not the talk I wanted to give. But then I thought, well, maybe introducing new generations to free software. But again, no, I don't really want to talk about this. So I think the best title for this talk is this, Introducing New Generations to Free, Libre, and Open Source Software. But at the first time, I was not really used to the term flaws. So what's the first thing you do when you don't know a word? Like right now. If I say a word you haven't heard ever of, what do? Google, okay. In my case, I went for Wikipedia. So what's flaws? What I found that's pretty interesting, I found this flaws is a core of thin filaments used to remove food and dental plaque from between teeth in areas a toothbrush is unable to reach. And yeah, this is a floss, but it's not the kind of floss I wanted. No, this is a dental floss. So I'm not a dental floss promoter or advocate. I mean, use it. It's good for your health. But no, I mean, the floss I'm talking about is free, libre, and open source software. I mean, for this talk, I mean, I'm going to use the terms without any distinction. So when I mention open source, I also refer to free or libre software and the other way around, just for this talk. Who read the abstract of this talk? Who knows what this talk is going to be about? Just raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, okay. So this talk was created with 3 questions into my mind. The first question, how to make young developers contribute to open source? I mean, this is a free software festival, so I really expect that most of the people are used to at least the term. And most of the people who come here are free software users. I mean, at some point, they decided to drop Windows and start using Linux. Maybe then they drop Chrome or Internet Explorer and they started to use Firefox or Chromium. Then they might decide to drop Microsoft Office and they start using LibreOffice. For designers, maybe some designers decide to drop Photoshop and Corel and they started to use GIMP, Inkscape. I don't know. I mean, we have plenty of users of free software here. I'm really sure of. I'm sure of that. But we really need more than that. I mean, we have developers, we have computer science students from this university and many others, and we really want them not only to use free software, but also to make free software and contribute to projects that they use every day. So how do we make this? I mean, it is good that they use free software, but it is better that if they create free software and collaborate free software. The second question I'm going to answer with this talk is how to find talent for your company. I mean, we are a 7-year-old company, but we have a lot of problems to finding people who do Ruby on Ruby on Rails in Mexico. And of course, every country has their own problems. Maybe they can't find web developers, they can't find embedded system developers, they can find C developers. Name it as you wish. But how do you find talent for your company? And the other problem related to this is it is hard to find talent for a small company. And this happens because the big companies, most of the students want to work with the big ones. I'm not going to say names, but I think you can figure it out easily. So how do you find talent for your company? And the third question, how to help underrepresented groups to start a professional path on programming. I mean, I really want to mention that I didn't use the word only women, because I mean, they are not the only underrepresented group. In Mexico, the official language is Spanish, but we have around, I think, 68 native languages, which are also used for some in some groups and in some places, and we have around 270 variations of those languages. So we can say that Mexico has one big official language and 270 unofficial languages. So those people are also an underrepresented group. How do we make, for example, people from other countries who live in Mexico to start a professional pilot career? How do we help people from public universities or people who doesn't have a formal education on programming or computer science to start a professional path on programming? That's why I use the term underrepresented groups. I'm sure in Brazil there are some different groups underrepresented in the IT industry that I didn't mention, but again, it's up to you to figure out which groups are underrepresented in your country. So this is what we did. Let's go back in time to the wonderful 2015. What was going on at that year? In case you somehow were sleeping on a cave that year, well, we have the left shark on the Super Bowl, which was very catchy on internet. We also have this. I don't know, the blue with black and golden with black dress problem. We have Bruno Mars hitting with Uptown Funky, and you heard that song everywhere you went, even though if you went to a rock bar or a rock music concert, somehow the song was there. My favorite, John Cena coming back to WWE. So this is pretty much what happened on internet on the last year. At that time, I used to live in Colima, Mexico. I mean, Colima is around 3 hours by car from Guadalajara, and it's a small town. The capital of Colima is a city called Colima as well. And I think Colima became famous last year thanks to this photograph. Cesar Cantu took this photograph of the Colima volcano, which is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. And I mean, it's a stunning picture. I used to work around, I don't know, it should be 100 kilometers from the volcano. And at that time, a group of women in Colima, they decided to start a group called Codificadas. What was the purpose? The same purpose I've mentioned, like in this case, to help women in Colima and students in Colima to start working for companies in the city, which are not really a lot, and also help them to discover some languages that are not usually taught at the university. And then this group later on became something that you might have heard, Women Who Code Colima. I know that because I found out that there are some Women Who Code chapters in Brazil, not in Porto Alegre, but in other cities, which is cool. And then in 2013, we organized the first Rails Bridge workshop in Mexico ever, and I think in Latin America ever. And it was in Colima. It was not in the big cities. It was in a small one. At that time, Desi McAdam, which is a very well-known person in the Ruby community, she went to Colima, gave the workshop, and most important, she taught us how to teach this workshop. So we are allowed to both to reproduce the workshop and to help other people and to teach other people how to give this workshop. At the time, Ana Castro, Animoro on Twitter, she found out that there was a program, an international program called Rails Girls Summer of Code. What is this about? It's a kind of internship for people, in this case, especially for women. They are there's a 3-month internship, and they invite open source projects from all the world. they submit their application. Hey, I want to participate on the Summer of Code program. Okay, they review the application. They talk to the owners of the project or the leaders of the project, and then decide to set several projects. On the other hand, students apply to this program. And the best thing of all is they are paid. I don't really remember how much they are paid, but for those 3 months they are given money so they can work full time on their projects. Anna discovered this and told us, hey, we should really try to participate. I mean, we have a couple of talented girls. She discovered those girls that, you know, when you have a community, there's always people who tries to do more and which is more participative, which is more curious. And in any group you go, you will find these kind of people. In this case, Sandra and Karen were those people. They were always asking, they were always trying to make a better work. So Anna mentioned, like, we should apply and we should tell these girls to apply as well, so we can be their mentors. They can apply, they can get the money, and they can spend 3 months working on full-time on open source. Well, great, let's do it. We applied, but we were not selected. But we had another option, our last option was to, we could participate on Summer of Code as a volunteer team. What it means. A volunteer team, it is doesn't get any money from the association, but can work on the project if the owner of the project accepts them. So we found this project, rubygamedev.com, and we talked to Andrew, the owner of the project, and he accepted to work with us. He already had, I think, a group from Europe. I don't remember which country, but he decided to work with both the group from Europe and the group from Mexico. So, man, that was very cool. And then Nora Aromaron at Twitter, she joins to give us some support. I mean, it was the first time Anna and myself were mentors of anyone, so we decided we need some help with the mentorship. So what is rubygamedev.com? Have you heard of Stack Overflow ever? Please raise your hands. Okay, Stack Overflow is a site where when you post questions, programming questions, and people from the community solve your questions. In this case, Ruby Game Dev is kind of like a Stack Overflow, but for programmers who use Ruby for games, which happens to be that there are a lot of people doing video games with Ruby. I'm not really sure why, but that's pretty cool. So they spent 3 months working on some features. I think, as far as I remember, they worked on the voting feature. There were some features regarding emails. Of course, there were broken unit and integration tests they fixed. And they spent 3 times working on that. The company provided us a place at the office and gave permission for both, for all of us, for Anna, Nora, and myself, to spend time with the girls, mentoring, teaching, and giving guidance on how to work on the project. This is the cool part, because it's not like, hey girls, there's a project, see you in 3 months and show me what you did. No, it's like you really need to work with them. They are learning, so it is very probable that they don't know they are not sure how to make things in the right way, so you have to teach them how. They spent 3 months, and then in, I think, September, October last year, Sandra discovered this program, Outreachy. What is this? It's similar to Summer of Code, but this is an 8-month internship, and they as well pay you to work for open source project. But in this case, the projects we're talking about, Mozilla Foundation, OpenStack, I think Python, like really big projects. I mean, not like small projects, but big companies. And the only condition to participate on this program is that the people who want to apply, they previously have to submit some code to the project they want to participate. Sandra decided that she wanted to work on OpenStack. Who has heard about OpenStack? No one? Yeah, I haven't seen talks about OpenStack here, which is pretty cool. Okay. OpenStack is, several projects that compose the OpenStack software. So these projects allow you to manage your infrastructure, but using code. I mean, you can, using code, create a new instance of servers, or virtual servers, of course. You can provide them with operative system, with some network interfaces. You can pretty much manage, create, and destroy and administrate this all your cloud infrastructure, which is cool because I mean, if you detect in your code, in your application, that you are getting an increase of your users, then you can, with code, say to OpenStack, I don't know, if we are getting more than 100 requests per second, create another server. And OpenStack helps you with the load balancer and that stuff. And I mean, it's pretty cool, OpenStack. And she decided to work on that project. And on October, she told us, hey, I got my first pull request approved to OpenStack. She fixed some tests that were broken on the Redis cluster unit testing. This project is mostly written on Python, and she had never used Python before. So she contacted a lot of contributors from OpenStack from Mexico and other countries, and they were happy to help. And I mean, at this point, this girl has done something that I have never done. I have never get approved something to OpenStack or any other major project. So I'm very happy for being part of this, for help her. And another cool part of this story. Again, in October 2015, we had the first social hackathon in Colima called Hack Colima, and they won. And I mean, that was awesome. I mean, these girls were, they haven't even graduated from university at that time, and they are doing open source, they're winning contests, they are providing solutions to problems on their community. And I mean, this is pretty cool. Then they decided to apply for an internship on the company. They were, of course, accepted. So they were on a 6-month internship. And I think last week they were hired as full-time employees. The last month they were working with a client, with a real on a project we had with a client. They were having, again, stand-ups, meetups, communication with the client on the United States. In less than a year that they started with the Summer of Code program. This is a picture of us I really like. This is from Programmers Day, which is around September 13, if I remember well. I mean, we have created a very solid group of people who wants to program. In this case, this is Nora, Sandra, Anna in the middle, Karen at this point, and myself at that point. And I mean, we are very happy for what we have done. We know we can do a lot more, and we really want to make this program, you know, we want to really have at least 2 people participating of Summer of Code every year. But if it is not possible, we want to make some initiatives, and we have done some initiatives to start helping these groups to start working on a professional career in programming. So far, this is what we learned, and I think this is the most important part of the talk for you. Remember that we have 3 questions. The first one, how to make young devs contribute to open source? And the answers are, well, mentoring. They have the talent, they have the knowledge, maybe, they have the enthusiasm to participate, but they don't know how. I attended a talk yesterday that was related to how open source helped me to get my dream job. I don't know if you were there, but the person who gave the talk mentioned something similar. Like, people want to help, people want to do open source, but they are afraid and they are not confident about their own skills. So what you, as people who have more time working on the industry, help them, mentoring. And why? Being a mentor rocks. It's really cool. You, for this program, I really improved my programming skills, because the girls sometimes ask things about Ruby and Rails, basic things, but I didn't remember those things, so I have to look for them and explain what they wanted to know. So this really helped me as a person and as a programmer to improve my skills. Also, it's about trust. Our company trusts that even though we were spending time with the girls, we could make also a regular job and get it in time. This was very exhausting, because sometimes in Mexico, companies usually close at 6 p.m., but we have to make up the time that we spend with the girls. So sometimes we were working at 7 or 8, maybe get some work for home. And of course, we were spending more time, but it was pretty cool that the company trusts on us, and we trust in the girls. We trust that they really appreciate what we were doing for them, and they were, and actually it paid off. The second question: if you have a company, this is, or you work for human resources at a software company. The second question: how to find talent for your company? The answer is, you don't really find talent, you don't really find. It is easy to get programmers who have 10 years working, and they are very good, but they are not going to be cheap. You have to pay them well. So I think it is easier to support your local communities, spot people who is really advanced and they have the skills. So in this case, we found these girls on the Women Who Code Colima chapter. But I mean, I have realized in the 3 days of this conference that there are several communities. So in case you have a company, or you work for a company who needs talent, it's easy. If you need people who programs in Python, go to PyLadies, go to Django Girls, and look for those girls. I mean, they might not come up easily, but if you spend some time attending the communities and asking and talking to the organizers, which people is the one you think is ready to work or is interested in working. Take these people from the community and help them to improve. And also we found this, and it's related to the point I said, foster talent on people. I mean, people who are working on programming related fields are very smart. I mean, the career is kind of hard, but I mean, they are talented. So instead of acquiring talent, instead of buying great programmers or hiring great programmers, hire good programmers who are beginning and make them great programmers. I think it's easier than you think. And the third question: how to help underrepresented groups start a professional path in programming. You really need to invest time, money, and human resources. Again, it's not going to be thanks to magic that, I don't know, in 10 years we have 40% of women in programming. No, I mean, it's not going to happen that way. We really need to invest time with the people, teach them, invest money. I mean, even though they are enthusiastic, they have to get food, they have to commute to a school, commute to your company. So they really need money to get these things done. And invest human resources. I mean, spend time, make your senior engineers spend time with with your junior and trainees. It really pays off. And the other one is create a good job environment. I mean, again, underrepresented group might not be confident about their skills, so make an environment that really supports them, that really when they make a mistake, don't really be harsh with them. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. I have made like 15 mistakes in the last 30 minutes. You might have not noticed. You might have. But like really encourage them to do the job. And if they do wrong, explain why it's wrong and teach them how to do it the right way. For this, there are some initiatives. The one I mentioned, Rails Girls Summer of Code. I'm pretty much sure that there are similar initiatives for other languages or web frameworks. That's a web page. Outreachy, outreachy.org. This one is very cool, Technovation Challenge. I think Brazil also participates on this. This is a program for women, I think, between 12 and 16. They have to create a mobile application that solves a problem for their local community. This is I think, almost 8-month initiative. So it works more or less the same. You have to find mentors, and you have to get a team that wants to apply, and you have to work with them and teach them how to do web applications, teach them how to create features. I mean, all the things that senior developers do, you have to teach them how to do. This is the page, technovationchallenge.org. This one is also cool, your first pull request. Just to put everyone in context, a pull request is when you submit code to a project and you ask the owner of the project to include the code in your in the code base. He might decide to accept or not. It gives you some feedback about parts of the code, and then when you get the pull request accepted, the code you created goes to the main code base. And this is the page, your first peer.github.io. And these pull requests on here are, maybe a senior can fix them easily, but they are not for seniors. And they have a special tag like, this is especially for beginners only. So there's a good way to start working on open source. And Code Triage is open source project submit, apply to this page, and you get an email, a daily email about a project you are interested in and all the issues they have and how to help them. And I found this quote. I mean, it's pretty similar. I think you have heard this. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. We can do the same for open source, right? Like, give a man primitive software and you will teach him how to use a computer. Teach a man open source, and he will know how to create computer programs for a lifetime. I found this was a quote Bob Marley, but I'm not really sure, so I put a citation needed in that part. Remember that I mentioned that we have some for people who is not a programmer. This is the question you might have. I'm not a programmer. Can I still help to open source? And the answer is yes. We really need a lot of help in other areas rather than product. The first one is use the product. I mean, we cannot make our open source projects better if we don't have people who use them. So use open source, use free software, and give feedback to the creators of the software. Hey, I had a problem on this platform. I found this book. I think your software is great. Maybe you don't find any book, or you are happy with the product, but take the time to say thanks to the creators. I mean, open source really takes time, so just say thanks. Translations for people who are studying languages. This is also a very important part of open source. I mean, I don't speak Portuguese at all, so it's been these 3 days have been very fun because I think I have behaved like a caveman to asking for food and asking for directions. So I mean, it's really frustrating to not be able to communicate. And it is also I'm 100%. I agree on 100% that if you don't know English, that shouldn't be a problem to work on software. I mean, at a point, it's really helpful to learn English, but it shouldn't forbid you to do programming. So take your favorite open source project and check if there is a translation in your language. If it is not, ask how you can submit or help with translations. Also, documentation. This is an important part. Maybe you found a book on, I don't know, LibreOffice, and you figured out that if you hit your keyboard 3 times, it works. So document that and submit that. Write blog posts about the problems you have and how you solve them. Save time for other people who might have the same problem that you. Design. There's a popular belief that people who create code are terrible and have awful taste on design. And it might be true, it maybe not. But if you're a designer, if you have an interest on design, you can help your favorite open source project to have a better design. Also the documentation, sometimes we are happy writing Markdown, but it's not very stylish, so you can help them to have a nice documentation. Why? Nice documentation attracts people. When you have a project or a product you want to use and the documentation is friendly, it is more probable that you use that product. So help us with design. We really need it. Social networks. There are some projects that really need help managing networks or maybe sending important messages to other users in maybe a different language, maybe in the same. So ask if you are more like marketing and that stuff, you can help with social networks and managing. Reproduce reported books. This part is important because sometimes people go with open source creators and they say, hey, I have a problem. What's the problem? Your software sucks. Okay, what happened? It doesn't work. Okay, why you say it doesn't work? Because it's terrible. Okay, I think we're not getting somewhere if you just don't give me the error you are encounter. And maybe there's another case that, for example, someone reports a book, I don't know, your page is not working on Internet Explorer 7. Okay, I really want to help you, but I don't have Windows and I don't have Internet Explorer. So can you please reproduce the steps, take some screenshots, try to really help me to get closer to find the book. Sometimes you cannot reproduce books. So if the people who encounters the book gives you more information, it is easier for us to fix the bug. And testing, again, some projects have some problems with new versions of operative system or all those. For example, you might not, as an open source creator, you might not support officially a Linux distribution, a Linux distro, but maybe a user found out that it works on that. So just test if everything works and report that, hey, this works also on Ubuntu 8. Okay, let's add that to the list of supported distributions. And this part is also important, evangelism. Talk about the open source software and the libre free software you use. Talk to your friends, just hey, I just found out this stuff, LibreOffice, which is cool, and it works with my Microsoft documents, and I haven't had any problems, so you should try. This kind of marketing, mouth-to-mouth, is very good for projects. And if you really don't have time to do the others, you can always make economic financial donations to project. I mean, programmers also sleep, also have a family, also spend money on food, spend money on commute. They also want to have vacations, so money is a good way it's a very straightforward way to participate. Just to finish this talk, I'm going to give this quote. So, flows goes beyond code and computers. It works thanks to the efforts of thousands of people who believe that through software and collaboration can make this world a better place for everybody. And I really like this quote because it's a quote I created 2 weeks ago for a conference. But I think it resumes perfectly what I want to transmit to you. The fact that, I traveled 17 hours because I really believe that what I had to say was worth listening, and that you can implement some of these programs in your companies, or you can adapt some of the learnings from this talk to your everyday life. So, questions? Preguntas en español también son bienvenidas. Portugués también, entiendo un poco. No? Well, I have some stickers from RailsReach and from MagmaLab, so I can give you some outside once the conference is done, in case you want. And thank you.